After using Adobe Bridge and Adobe Camera Raw to correct a series of JPEGs or TIFFs or images shot originally in RAW, you may want to convert them to another format to do a different correction. I'm going to switch to my Kelly workspace where I have a nice large preview and bigger thumbnails in the content area. And I can tell by this icon in the upper right corner that these are not raw, untouched JPEGs, but they've been corrected using Adobe Camera Raw and File, Open, and Camera Raw. I'm happy with the corrections on this series, so I'm going to click the first one and shift-click on the last. Then choose Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor. This is basically a script that jumps over to Photoshop, and I will select a folder that I've created on the desktop. On the Mac, Command D will get me to the desktop, and I'll go into my Corrected Images folder and hit Open. Now, I'm going to make two versions at once. I would like small emailable versions because some people just do not access social media sites and they can't look at my pictures there. So for friends that haven't signed up to the most popular social media, I'll shoot them random pictures that are resed down so that they don't fill up their inbox. A great way to soft proof with a client, just send them an email attachment, but not the high-res version, a low-res version so again you're not clogging up or filling up all the storage they have available. With quality, I usually go somewhere between 6 and 8 because my goal with making a new JPEG out of the corrected JPEG is something that is trashable, just a small, soft-proof, emailable version. But at the same time, I want an uncompressed, high-resolution PSD. And I'm not going to resize it. Because the shots that I corrected were taken on a point-and-shoot or low-end camera, re-JPEGing them will throw away more data permanently that I can never get back. So I never save a JPEG twice unless it's a res-down, trashable version of a JPEG. So I'm going to hit Run. That's all I need to do. If you don't need an emailable version, you could just put them into an uncompressed PSD. And in fact, when I place images I've worked on from Photoshop into InDesign or Illustrator, I always save in the Photoshop format. That's the preferred format. And I'll hit Run. With one exception, if I add type in Photoshop, and type is far more robust in CS6, type layers preserve their crisp vector edges if you save as a Photoshop PDF. Just a keynote there. Saving as PSD or Photoshop document may rasterize your type or make it look fuzzy. Side note. So here it's finished. I'll scroll up to my desktop and I'll locate the corrected images, and inside there I see two versions, the JPEG, and if I click one of the JPEGs and hit metadata, I could see that the file size is 167K, 172, 174. Nice and small, great for emailing. But to make sure I don't confuse these with the raw JPEGs, the ones the camera originally captured, I'm going to choose Tools, Batch Rename, and I will keep the current file name. Now, normally I use this where it says name and extension to force things to lowercase, but here I just want the name only because I'm going to add text at the end, and I'll type the text _SM for small, indicating it's a small emailable version. I do this always with my headshots, again, that I have to post on many different social media sites. The _SM is the resed down version for posting online, and then I have my high-res version, which has no suffix at the end. This is also a great way to separate web images, rollover images. Sometimes they use _on or _over or _btn for button. So if you're doing action scripting or Java scripting, batch rename is phenomenal to get your assets ready. So I'll hit rename, and they're all renamed, and I won't confuse them with the original untouched JPEGs. Now I will go to the PSD folder. When the image processor ran, it made two versions at the same time. I've got this image, and uncompressed it is 8.9 megs. About all of them hover in that same range. So if I wanted to do further corrections, like creating artificial depth of field by blurring the background, I could double-click on the image and begin working in Photoshop. So this was your tour of using Adobe Bridge and coming in and batch converting to one of three formats at once. If I come back to that folder and scroll down, I could see the corrected images, and I'll show you one last trick before we close. I'll click here and shift-click on the last one, and since I have a saved high-res color-corrected version, I could do Edit, Develop Settings, Clear the corrections I did in Adobe Camera Raw to get to the pure untouched JPEG. And then I could select one image, File, Open in Camera Raw, and do a completely different correction, like take out all the saturation so that it's black and white, and then play with a few of my dials to get a higher contrast or better version of the black and white image, before, after. Hit Done, and then I could copy and paste that series, Edit, Develop Settings, Copy. I will click and shift-click, Edit, Develop Settings, Paste, click OK, and they're all grayscale. And before I run the image processor, I'm actually going to rename them here. Tools, Batch Rename, and I'll keep the current file name, but I often add GS on the end for grayscale images. So now they won't be confused with the other corrected ones. So I'll go back to Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor. All the settings are the same, make two versions at once. It can even do the third format of TIFF while it's doing the other two. And I'll hit Run. And that was a tour of twice creating different versions, one high-res, one low-res, by using the image processor built into Photoshop and built into Adobe Bridge. Basically, Bridge scripts this over. So now I have a small JPEG and a grayscale JPEG, and I have a color-corrected version of a Photoshop and a grayscale version of the Photoshop image. Give the image processor a try on some of your own files to see how much time you could save every day or every week.